Global News has put out a article here a couple days ago. It was posted December 7th, 5 a.m. 2020. It was updated on December the 6th, 2020, 1:36 p.m. They put this article out, I would say, because no one actually reads Global News, but because they want to actually put out the game plan for everybody to see. They want to tell everybody what's going on so that you're not surprised when it happens, right? So that when they can claim efficacy, right? Just like the vaccine companies, right? The efficacy rate. We have to make sure that we can't be sued for any wrongdoing, right? Whenever somebody does anything, okay? Whenever you as an individual do anything, if the thing that you're most concerned about is whether or not you can be sued or not sued for liability, that's a pretty good indication that you're a piece of shit. It's a pretty good indication that you're a communist, slime, sucking traitor. Hiya. Neo-Nazis, extremists capitalizing on COVID-19, declassified CSIS documents say. This is a beauty of a document, okay? Extremist groups have been promoting disinformation about COVID-19 in an attempt to capitalize on the pandemic, according to declassified Canadian intelligence files obtained by Global News. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and anti-government extremists in particular have been using COVID-19 conspiracy theory to attract followers, raise money, and encourage violence, the document said. A secret national security brief prepared for senior Canadian officials and shared with foreign governments linked disinformation about the virus to what it calls ideologically motivated violence. Ideologically motivated violence, or IMF extremists. So, you gotta go, kid. Say bye-bye. Say bye. Say bye. Bye-bye. So, what extremist groups have been promoting disinformation besides the left-wing Chinese communist-leaning regimes? So, what exactly are the extremist groups that have been promoting the disinformation? Because when they say disinformation, right, they just mean anybody that's promoting anything counter to what the government and the health officials are saying, right? And who gives them their information, their marching orders? Well, it's the United Nations, the World Health Organization. They give the marching orders. And then who gives them their marching orders? Well, the Chinese Communist government, right? So it's disinformation to question or talk about the foreign influence that is happening domestically in your country. Neo-Nazis, white supremacy, and anti-government extremists in particular have been using COVID-19 conspiracy theories to attract followers, raise money, and encourage violence. I haven't seen any violence committed by anybody except for those of the left. right? The only anti-government extremism that I've seen has been the pulling down of Canadian statues, the rewriting of Canadian laws and Canadian traditions, right? The total repopulation of the entire country by mass immigration. Okay, that's the anti-government extremists. Like, that's the only thing that we see that's extreme, is the extreme changes that are taking place in our country. I don't see neo-Nazis walking around with Hitler flags or swastikas. I don't see KKK hoods walking around. Doesn't happen. Doesn't exist. There's no movement. A secret national security brief prepared for senior Canadian officials and shared with foreign governments links disinformation about the virus to what it calls ideologically motivated violent extremists. Just get this, a secret national security brief, okay? Dad? A secret national security brief prepared for Canadian officials and shared with foreign governments. So what is it? Because in the video above the article it says that Iran, Russia, and China are spreading disinformation about COVID. Now it's saying that a secret national security brief prepared for senior Canadian officials and shared with foreign governments. Why on earth would you have a secret national security brief and then share it with foreign governments? Why are we having national security briefings with foreign governments? What foreign governments? What do foreign governments have anything to do with what's going on in our country and the potential security threat? What do we need foreign governments to know about? Is there a silent revolution happening? Because from what I can understand, everybody just loves COVID and they just can't wait for a vaccine. So what are they talking about? Where are all these white supremes, all these neo-Nazis? Where are they? Where are all these anti-government extremists? Where are they? They're anti-Canadian government, right? The extremists are in the government. The extremists are in the places of power. Okay? That's what's going on here. They're anti-Canadian government extremists, and they're in power right now, and they're in charge of everything. And they're communists. And they work for the United Nations. They have no loyalty to this country. If you look like me and you were born in this country, okay, born and raised, and you went through all of the rites of passage as being a young man in this country, you woke up one day and suddenly realized that didn't mean nothing. A secret national security brief. Well, I'd say that's a breach of national security. IMF extremists and others are using the COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity to promote disinformation and alternative narratives regarding both the cause of the pandemic and potential societal outcomes, it said. Violent, ideologically motivated violent extremists. I'm ideologically motivated to raise my family, right? To love my wife, to work hard, right? To try to earn a living and provide for my family. And most importantly, to serve God. To love my neighbor, right? And want something more than this for my children's future. I don't care if I don't have anything, but my children need to have a future. And this is no future. Disinformation and alternative narratives regarding both the cause of the pandemic and the potential societal outcomes. So what? The cause of the pandemic. Well, what was the cause? Other than what was said. Wuhan lab, right? Virus escaped Wuhan lab, traveled throughout China. Videos came out, disinformation videos came out, showed the Chinese Communist government going to extremes to take care of the COVID situation, right? Mass graves, cities being fumigated, right? People being welded in their houses, people being drugged from their houses, right? Was there even any COVID? Or was it just the complete destruction? Because this happens every so often, right? In China, when there becomes be a build of resistance, well, every once in a while you have to trim the fat, so they say, right? So they just killed all the political dissidents and all this, and then they showed you a bunch of images of them taking care of a pandemic virus to scare other populations, to say, jeepers, that's what China did in order to get control of it. Because look, in China right now, they're all wearing masks, they're all doing their thing, but it's like COVID doesn't even exist, right? They're on their own form of brainwashing. So that's a conspiracy, right? That's a conspiracy where it came from. It's a conspiracy to think that they knew it because they said they were following it in China back in December, but yet they still allowed international flights to carry on. And then only once it, came to our shores and entrenched itself, right, by March, did they say, we got to shut down all travel, right? They locked everything down. What's disinformation about that? You guys were following it, but you didn't know. You were following it, but you weren't. You knew it was dangerous, but it wasn't. You didn't want to lock everybody down, but you did. And then somehow you turn around and you blame, Donald Trump for it, right? Potential societal outcomes. Potential societal outcomes like mass suicide, like mass immigration overtaking the local population, like every small business owned by a Canadian that's lived here for over 30 years going down the toilet. Oh, you mean how families are turning on each other, friends and families? Oh, you mean how you can't work without papers? Oh, you mean the mass hysteria and fear inducement of all this? Those societal outcomes, is that a conspiracy? Well, it is a conspiracy, right? It's not a theory. It's a conspiracy. The report was among a cache of Canadian intelligence documents obtained by Global News under the Access of Information Act. The documents reveal that CSIS has been tracking the national security aspects of the pandemic, notably the disinformation promoted by authoritarian states and extremists that is fueling conspiracy theory and distrust of government and health authorities. No, you guys are fueling all that. You guys are fueling the theories, right? About what you're conspiring to, right? You guys are conspiring, which makes way to theories about what you're conspiring, right? You keep things secret so people think, what are they up to? You guys change your story so people think, You guys directly contradict yourself from one day to the next. You don't think people are going to ask some questions? You don't think people are going to ask some questions why all of a sudden in 2020 we have to go to these extreme measures even though we haven't seen any visible information that would make us take these actions besides lies that came out of authoritarian states like China and the videos that came out and all the censoring of the videos? Remember all that? That's how they duped people that are actually looking into the information, right? That to get them kind of, and that way they could really unleash it on the public. Right? Because originally no one knew what was going on. Authoritarian states. What authoritarian states are in the world besides communist states? Okay? Communist China. The same state that's fueling conspiracy theories and distrust of government and health authorities, right? Yeah, we're distrusting our government, so let's move to a China model because they're a lot more efficient in handling these things, right? You know, China, who are openly bragging how that they're sending sex operatives in high places, how that they have people in high places of Canadian government and U.S. government, how they have people in all walks and branches of public service, right? When they have them in all corporate and retail sectors. Why? To promote disinformation. To promote anti-Canadian rhetoric and pro-China. And our very media is doing that. Right? They're not critical of China. They're pro-China. They're the Chinese broadcasting channel, CBC. Conspiracy theories have always been a mainstay of right-wing extremists, but the pandemic has handed the far-right new fodder at a time of heightened public anxiety. You have heightened the anxiety by publicly spreading all this disinformation, by publicly lying to people, by publicly fear-mongering people into hopeless depression. Okay? You guys have all the fodder, right? And you guys are just ramrodding that in there, right? Jamming it down people's throat, just like a friggin' blunderbuss. You guys are just coercing people daily with fear. And you don't care who it is. You will find a way to victimize them and then pull them over to your side. You are heightening the anxiety. The COVID-19 pandemic provides the opportunity for many within these milieux to espouse their worldviews, promote extreme actions, including violence, and in some cases exploit them for financial gain, CSIS report said. Yeah, it's become a real platform for regular Canadians to espouse their worldviews of wanting to live in a free country without having government and bureaucracies on their back 24/7. Yeah, that's a real bad worldview to have, right? The worldview where you just want to be able to get up, go to work, come home, be with your family. Maybe have a little bit extra, maybe to buy something. Promote extreme actions, including violence. Extreme measures require extreme actions. And there's extreme measures being implemented upon our people. So you can bet that that's going to be reciprocated with some extreme actions. Violence? No, I'm not looking to violate anybody. Who on the right is looking to violate anybody? Nobody. You guys are violating our rights. And when you try to violate someone else's rights, well, then that becomes a reciprocation on you, right? That blood be upon your head, right? Do you not understand that? You can't just go in to somebody's home and start telling them how to live and threatening them if they don't, right? At that point in time, it's that person's rightful responsibility to grab you by the scruff of the neck and toss you out of their own house. Private property. Well, they don't want private property anymore. They want to totally get rid of private property, private ownership. Right? What else motivates a person to do anything? Right? But again, the point is that they've got a whole army of soy boys that don't care about not owning anything. They don't care about being independent. There's a whole army of these people that just want to go through and do what they're told. They don't want you to wake up in the morning and think about anything. They want you just to get up and go and do. Financial gain, there's no financial gain in all this. Any financial gain there is in this, you lose because the government is going to take it away anyways, right? Nobody's making it rich by espousing their worldviews here, right? Not happening. But you guys are lining your pockets. Walmart's lining their pockets. Amazon's lining their pockets. The government's lining their pockets. People inside the government are lining their pockets. Corporations are lining their pockets. Banks are lining their pockets. Commies are lining their pockets. Everybody's lining their pockets except for you and me. The extremist COVID-19 propaganda, for example, blames Jews, China, immigrants, the government, and societal elites for the pandemic, it said. So who does that leave? Right? The only people to blame for the blaming is the middle class whitey, right? The Jews, China, immigrants being the whole plethora of brown, the government, the left, and societal elites, right? Hollywood, right? The media, right? Globalists. The only people that are on that list, or that aren't on that list, are working class, everyday Canadians. That's who's on their list. That's who they're telling you is a ideologically motivated, violent extremist, right? The local population. Why are they telling us this? Why are they saying that the local population is a direct threat to the government? Maybe because their government is rogue and they're putting that out there. Right? Gaslight Nation. The report was written back before a heavily armed Manitoba military reservist drove his pickup truck to Rideau Hall on July 2nd and said he wanted to speak to the Prime Minister. A 2-page letter he allegedly wrote, he did or he didn't, suggested he had been exposed to popular conspiracy theory. The CSIS reports that COVID-19 conspiracy theories had contributed to a death in Toronto. Really? Just one death? That's all? On March 17th, the 40-year-old activist live-streamed videos on Facebook in which he spoke about his political grievances, doused himself in gasoline, self-immolated himself, and stabbed himself. He was tasered by police but died in hospital. Ontario's Special Investigation Unit investigated the incident but closed the file a month later. What? According to friends, the activists believe that the COVID-19 shutdown was an established conspiracy plot, ostensibly to strip Canadians of their rights and freedoms, the CSIS report said. Why didn't Facebook shut down the live stream? Why didn't Facebook notify the authorities? I mean, they notify the authorities if you post something disinformation about Kovo, so why didn't they stop his live stream? Why didn't the friends act accordingly to this guy's apparent depression, his hopelessness? Was he on meds? Was he off the meds? Okay, what was he into? Why it doesn't say where his political leanings are. It just says that he had political grievances. And this is clearly a political message. Dousing yourself in gasoline, self-immolated and stabbed himself. You can call that mental illness, but what did the monk do there? The Tibetan monk or whatever he was there back years ago. Remember when he sat in the middle of the street, poured gasoline on himself and lit himself on fire? There's that iconic image of him burning there while just sitting on his knees peacefully. This is terrible that a government would propagate this upon a population that's unsuspecting, where you have a 40-year-old dousing themselves in gasoline, stabbing themselves. Why would anybody do that unless they're in the complete throes of hopelessness and depression? What about buddy there that came out of the Hotel Frontenac with the sword, medieval garb, and started chopping people? What did they say? Well, it was a good thing that COVID was happening, because due to COVID and social distancing, there were far less people that were killed in the incident than what it could have been. That's your silver lining? That's your silver lining. That's what you're telling people. This is sick. That wouldn't have happened if all of these lockdowns, all these regulations, all these mandates weren't in place. You guys are causing it. Another report in the intelligence files by the Integrated Terrorism Assessment Center said that while extremists were exploiting COVID-19, they had also been forced to change targets and cancel physical meetings because of the pandemic. It added that some right-wing extremists were discouraging their followers from spreading COVID-19 conspiracy and instead wanted them to promote panic in order to accelerate the demise of the current social order. You guys are promoting the demise of the current social order. You guys are promoting with all this bullcrap by saying that, oh, well, we won't get out of this till the vaccine is here. Oh, well, the vaccine's here, but we won't get out of this until everybody's vaccinated. And after everybody's vaccinated, then we have to wait at least a year of restrictions until we can go back to normal. And then it'll be something else. And then it'll be something else. No, you guys are accelerating the demise of the current social order by gaslighting the entire nation. Gaslighting people on the left, gaslighting people on the right. With all this bull crap. You guys are instilling panic, right? People don't know if they're going to be able to celebrate Christmas. And if they do, they're not going to be able to celebrate together with family. People are losing their businesses. People are being denied health care, life-saving procedures. People are being lied to and deceived on such a mass level. And you think that that's not going to cause panic and accelerate the demise of the current social order when we don't even believe a word that comes out of the government's mouth or the media? I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe any of it. An expert who reviewed the documents said that they showed CSIS was looking at ideologically, politically, and religiously motivated groups, cells, and individuals and how the pandemic is affecting them. In some cases, they concluded that the pandemic has limited their movement and therefore has reduced their ability to act in the medium term, while in other cases, CSIS sees the pandemic as something that extremists are taking advantage of, said Jessica Davis, president of Insight Threat Intelligence and a former CSIS analysis. I'd say that their view is largely correct, particularly if we keep in mind that they're writing from a Canadian perspective. What? I say that their view is largely correct, particularly if we keep in mind that they're writing from a Canadian perspective. They're telling you right there. They're telling you that if you are writing from if you're from a Canadian perspective, when you see your country going down the toilet, when you see your children's future going down the toilet, right? You might be a little bit wary, right? That sentence there says it all, guys. The CSIS report referred to the QAnon conspiracy theory movement and said that it had been claiming COVID-19 was a fake and an attempt to prepare for the imposition of martial law. That's what they're doing. That's why the military is being mobilized. That's why they're building camps all over the country. That's why they're getting people used to lockdowns and mandatory mask wearing and social distancing, right? And essential services. That's why they're getting people used to it for the imposition of martial law. No, we're imposing it so that we don't have to impose it. It also mentions acceleration as to encourage violence to escalate the collapse of society, and anti-government preppers who view COVID as the proof that an apocalyptic end is coming and they need to get ready. Apocalyptic narratives, whether of societal collapse, biblical rapture, or race war, are the primary manner by which neo-Nazi, white supremacy, and ethno-Nazis draw in new followers and resources, the reports said. The triune effect of the angry white man is coming to fruition. You guys are creating the rise of the Fourth Reich that you've been talking about for years. You guys are making it happen, right? Just like communism created National Socialism in Germany before World War II, you're creating it now in our world. Why? To accelerate all of this. Because you want an immovable object against an unstoppable force, right? You want extremes on one side, extremes on the other to clash together, right? To destroy themselves so that everybody that's in the center will rise up and come together underneath the banner of Luciferianism. That's Albert Pike's Third World War. To a T. The conspiracy theories CSIS said were being promoted online by extremists also includes the assertion that the coronavirus was a Chinese bioweapon and that it was created by an international consortium of Jews. Kind of like the Chinese Communist government was aided and put in place by Zionist Jews before Mao's Great Leap Forward. Is that what you mean? That consortium of Jews working with the Chinese government? Is that what you mean? I don't know. It walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Well, man, it must be a duck. Others are that COVID-19 is caused by 5G wireless technology and it is an attempt by the United Nations to impose a new world order. Oh, there's the linchpin, right? The United Nations, right? The force that gets used, right, to implement. United Nations mandates, okay? 5G wireless technology, they've been racing around setting this stuff up. Why? Because they need the bandwidth, they need the technology. Why? Because when the grid goes up, when Skynet goes up, they need the technology. They need to know where you are all the time, and they need to be able to run on your operating system that they've reprogrammed with the RNA vaccination, right? With the nanobodies that are in the vaccination that they put in your body to rewrite your DNA that contain aborted fetal tissue in it. Right? That's why they got to freeze it so they can't have it at room temperature. They got to keep it frozen until it gets into your body, and then it can connect with your body, rewrite your DNA, where you become a GMO creature. And the 5G helps turn it on or turn whatever on or off that they need to. Okay, that's how they control these bioweapons, is with the technology. Key theme of COVID-19 conspiracies in the U.S. and to a lesser degree in Canada is that the government will use the pandemic to impose martial law and target the gun owners. Because it didn't target gun owners in the summer in the midst of the pandemic when that questionable shooting happened in Nova Scotia, whereby they immediately imposed a gun ban across the entire country, blanketing all gun owners as white terrorists and extremists. That imposition of martial law to target gun owners, is that what you mean? In another report, CISA said the pandemic had lowered the religiously motivated violence threat in the immediate term. The report, which was otherwise entirely redacted, was written in April. But since then, there have been several Islamist extreme attacks in Europe, notably October 16th, murder and beheading of a teacher in France, and the Vienna mass shooting on November the 2nd. Far-right figures have also been appearing at Toronto anti-lockdown rallies in recent weeks. So the threat level of Islam is not there in Canada. You need to worry about whitey anti-lockdown rallies and far-right figures, right? Hey, listen, if you're talking about the line or hugs over masks, they're not part of anybody that's right-wing. In fact, those are funded movements, right? Counter opposition. These guys are funded by the same people who are funding Black Lives Matter and Antifa, right? You can just look at it. Just look at it, how they're dressed. Just look at the signage. Just look at their whole mantra. It's all the same. But they're going to equate far-right figures to Islamic extremism in Europe, okay? None of that stuff's happening here, but it's happening over there. But Islamist extremism is not happening here. No, it's whitey here. Over there it might be the Muslims, but here it's not. It's not Muslims here. It's Christians here that are the problem. Major global issues such as the pandemic can augment extreme efforts to move their message from the fringes of society to the mainstream, CISA spokesperson John Townsend said when asked about the documents. No, see, the mainstream puts an idea in someone's head, so then they go to the internet and they research it. But it's getting harder and harder to research things on the internet because the mainstream has gone to the internet. They're trying to get on the internet because nobody watches the mainstream. So they need to therefore take over what they call the fringes so that nobody gets any alternative information, right? No dissension, no critical thought, no logic, no independent thinking is allowed in the Chinese Canadian communist dictatorship. It augments extremist efforts, what you call extremist efforts, which are really just normal everyday Canadians, and their concerns about what's happening in our country, that are concerned about military being trained, Chinese military being trained on our soil for cold weather warfare. We have Chinese operatives in the seats of power of our government. Justin Trudeau has said, well, I quite like China because their basic dictatorship has really allowed them to step up. So, Justin, well, you're following a basic dictatorship right now. So, what's the difference? What's the difference? China's just following, or Trudeau's just following the China model. And he's been very clear about his beliefs, right? It's been right in front of your face all this time. He's a traitor. The entire Liberal government are traitors. A good portion of the Conservatives are traitors. Many of these community leaders are traitors. Our country is filled with traitors. Traitors to their own. The Great Reset, Albert Pike's World War III, this entire covo, right? They're laying everything out in this article, right? They're telling you what's happening. They're telling you who's promoting it. They're telling you what they're doing. They're putting the rhetoric in your mind, right? They're implanting the seed in your mind. So when things start to go down, they've already laid the groundwork, right? Because you say this article doesn't mean nothing. Well, it's going to mean something when they start implementing